gas, into all kinds of things. I'll talk about the green oil and ability to convert waste to wealth a little later, but let me focus on how are we converting carbon dioxide to materials like leather, nanofibers, and I'll just give you one example of a spider silk so you'll get feel for what I'm talking about. And this is all about using CRISPR technology or genetically modifying organisms to essentially take a feedstock like CO2 and convert to various things, and this is going to be the future in the world. For example, if you look at what this slide is talking about is that using the power of CRISPR, we're actually genetically modifying algae, a photosynthetic organism. So we are converting CO2 with the energy of sun's photons and converting it to this new novel material. You may not know this, but spider silk is the toughest material and the lightest material, better than the steel and the DPE that I talked about before. It's a very complex genetic engineering, and it's depicted by the amount of gene engineering we do in this cassette. But most importantly, you can see, maybe perhaps it's not visible, the video where we are drawing a spider silk from the protein we make from algae. So essentially I'm converting CO2 to a very novel material. Now our initial focus here is to do skin care and hair care and cosmetic surgery products. But at the end of the day, this material is going to replace the DPE I talked about, and this will be very useful for lightweighting armor and making all kinds of products because it's the strongest material known to mankind, which is biodegradable, which is elastic, and it's very, very light and very strong. So keep this in mind. Now, same biological technologies are also going to change the way we look at the waste. Because if you look at municipal solid waste or any waste, it's nothing but the sun's energy that got captured after we utilize for food consumption. And so we can convert that sun's energy to green oil. And I think I'll repeat it, green oil is going to be very valuable, just like green hydrogen. And so, for example, if we take all our municipal solid waste that we generate in India and we convert to green oil, I can convert to aviation sustainable fuel and meet all the aviation fuel demand in India. And so I will show you what I'm trying to do here with a big pilot plant we built. So if you look at the top right corner, you can see the sheer size of what we have built. And I can convert any organic waste to a green oil using this so-called RCAT HTL technology, again invented here in India. And I'm trying to show the power of this green oil in this table. The Indian government is actually subsidizing bio-CNG and 2G ethanol. So if you compare this table, what I'm trying to show is that this green oil, which I make at $50 a barrel, if you will, compared to today's crude oil at $100 a barrel. So certainly, if you look at the advantage, it's tremendous. And what this table shows is that without subsidy, the bio-CNG is not practical, neither is 2G ethanol. Whereas the MSDW-based green oil is far more competitive in terms of payout. But most importantly, it converts more of your feedstock to useful energy, as shown here in the third row. Per ton, I almost convert 500 or 50% of it to oil. And oil is the most energy dense material, and I'll show the power of oil a little later. But this is what we are doing. In my mind, there's no policy in the Indian government, so I'm appealing to the minister. If there's a policy for green oil, just like what we have for bio-CNG 2G ethanol, this product will take off and will convert all our organic waste to a green oil, a very, very useful commodity material that you can do many things with. But the most important thing we have done, this is again the first to the world, if you will. This is called, we are using algae, a synthetic, it's actually a photosynthetic organism, and I'm converting carbon dioxide with sun's energy to a green oil. And all the technology needed to do this was invented here in India, and we have a very large pilot plant at Jamnagar, as shown here. Today I can make a green oil at about $100 to $120 a barrel without any subsidy or without any carbon credit. And if you look at the subsidies that are available in the US and Europe, I can make it about $60 a barrel. And that is an enormous advantage, if you will, if there was a right policy structure to get going on these kinds of innovative technologies developed here in India. I'll just show you power of what green oil can do. A lot of people are working on batteries, so I just chose battery as an example. What is oil? Oil is nothing but a stored energy. And if I have a green oil, which is carbon neutral, absolutely carbon neutral, because I'm taking carbon dioxide and converting it into green oil. And what I'm showing here is that, we're all excited about solar energy, we're all excited about wind energy, that's great. But there are intermittent sources of energy. Once the amount of intermittent source of energy goes up on the grid, then you have to worry about stabilizing the grid. And a lot of people working on various batteries, whether it's lithium ion, compressed air, mechanical batteries. If you make green oil and you just burn it to make electricity, I'm telling you, forget about making even fuels. If you're going to electrify the world because of end-use efficiency, the energy storage technology on the grid is absolutely needed. Because if it rains continuously, and I know what happens in Jamnagar, since I'm running my algae ponds, for many days the sun doesn't shine. So in the monsoon season, how are you going to make the economy run? We're talking about hydrogen, ammonia, all the great things. Are you going to store those in large quantities? Because today I make hydrogen and use it right away. So there's a lot of new critical inventions needed for hydrogen, ammonia, these things to be working at a capacity and a scale we need. Whereas this thing you can use, because oil is the easiest to store, easiest to transport, and if you make green oil, if you will, it's a carbon neutral oil. I can use existing infrastructure, and if electrification happens, so if you look at this, the column, the 6th column and the 5th column, and I'm just using lithium as a surrogate. You can use any battery. The trouble is no battery has the energy density that the green oil has, and this sort of a stuff, if you look at it, is the cheapest way to make electricity when you need large scale gigawatt hour storage for multiple days, which is going to be essential. Even DOE, for example, is not looking after storing something more than 3 days. So if you have to fully decarbonize and become completely independent and be completely 100% green, this is one option we must exploit. And this is here invented in India by Indians, and we are doing it here. By the way, we have also demonstrated I can integrate the production of green oil and algae underneath the solar panels. So I can use the land far more efficiently while I'm making electricity from solar. At the same time, essentially making a battery by making oil underneath it. This is really a major breakthrough invention here again because of understanding of fundamentals of photosynthesis. And if you think about synthesis, photosynthesis, converting photons to whatever you want, the food you eat, the clothes you wear, the energy you consume, at the end of the day, it all comes from sunlight. And so this is how you can make the entire world become green, if you will. Again, this is really a major breakthrough. It's going to take a huge amount of investment and a lot of patient capital to make it commercial at scale. But this is something that is possible. It's far better than anything you have heard about, and probably you will not hear it from fancy consultants and others, because this is something we've been looking at from a first principle on a fundamental basis, what can be done. Anyway, I'll give you my perspective of Atmanirbhar Bharat, and this is something perhaps Minister may want to hear, because this needs a mindset change at a fundamental level. I work with many national labs and universities, you name it, startups, and the way we look at it is that we need a much closer public-private multidisciplinary networks that work together. Because a lot of times I work with our national labs and, for example, the universities. To me, it's more like their thinking is more like a relay. They're going to do something and give it to me. And more often than not, we drop this baton. What we're really looking for is actually end-to-end engagement of all skills with a true leadership mindset, like a Kuchipudi dance of Reddys. And I really can relate to Prime Minister Modi's message on the 75th Independence Day. This is about we have to leave our servitude mindset behind. Then only we can progress at a much rapid pace and achieve the objective and the goal that Pradeep Goyal talked about in the beginning. So just look at the picture on the bottom left. There's nothing but just the gate. And what are the sheep doing with the herd mentality? They are just going through the gate, although the entire thing is open. What we need to do is actually think on our own feet and do something for the first of a kind in the world, and have a break away from the flock. Because in my mind, when major disruptions are on the horizon, like the 4th Industrial Revolution, the fast followers may never catch up with major disruptions happen and will always be behind the first movers. So this is the time for us, and especially I'm appealing to young Indians. Think on your feet and do something that nobody has done before. And if you do that, this is something that will make a lasting impression on the world. And what are the mindset change we need to think about at all levels? Society, industry, government, all together working. Because one area where India is behind is in translational research. We do a lot of great work in our laboratories. Putting that big capital to build a first commercial plant in the world is where we don't take risk. This is where perhaps we need to learn from musicians on how they harmoniously work together. We need to build on a collective connected ingenuity today's boundaryless world. Exploit all the knowledge together and make something that nothing has happened before. And this is my simple message. And to me, inventions matter because inventions drive innovation. So just look at what Mahatma Gandhi's message was. I would prize every invention of science made for the benefit of all. There are a lot of innovation gurus. What I'm going to appeal to you is that in India should be inventions. Innovation to me is implementation more effectively and not imitation. That is what in India should stand for. So we need to work together as a government, as academia and industry together in translational R&D. And this is how it's going to help our aspiring Indians to climb the ladder of prosperity. The only way we can climb the ladder of prosperity is to think beyond, not just be a follower. And this is my simple message to you. So thank you again for inviting me. Probably my thoughts are very different. And they're very, very, what I would say, out of the box, if you will. But if you don't think about 10 years, 20 years from now, how are you going to advance and leapfrog the world? This is the only way to do it. And so for me, it's a simple message to young Indians especially, because your energy, your ingenuity is going to take us forward much beyond. And again, Prime Minister Modi's message was very, very important. Get rid of the word sir and then yes sir that follows. That's the only way you're going to get rid of the servitude mindset. And that's very, very important for our young Indians and young at heart people to actually make a great progress for India. So thank you very much again for inviting me. Probably my views are very different from most what you have heard about.